Have you ever played Vampires, Bloodlord Rising, thinking you're crushing it until the game reminds you that you're still thinking like a beginner? Today I'm getting straight to the point. No obvious tips like level up more or explore the map. We're talking about the kind of fine-tuning that changes your efficiency, your survival, and the pace of your progression. Those insights that once learned make you wish you could go back in time and use them from hour one. So get ready, because here are 10 advanced tips you need to know in Vampires Bloodlord Rising, and some of them will make you completely rethink how you approach combat, resources, and priorities in the early to mid game. I'm Matthew, and the video starts right now. In Bloodlord Rising, you don't need to stay planted in build mode waiting to gather materials. The trick is to open the build menu, plan, leave it in blueprint, and move on with your life. Your minions will build automatically as the resources arrive. I like to think of this as making a shopping list for your empire. First, I mark what I want, walls, stations, layout expansion, and only then do I worry about the logistics. This avoids that classic mistake of placing everything live and then realizing you missed a detail, that the area is too cramped, or that you blocked the flow of your own barracks. In practice, this also gives you the freedom to actually play the game, explore, hunt, do missions, and pull in resources, while the base resolves itself in the back end. And there's a great side effect. You start building with more intention because the plan becomes your draft for the perfect castle. When I do this, I stop improvising in desperation and start designing a decent flow, and when I come back from a gathering run, it's very satisfying to see that the minions have already done the work without me micromanaging every brick. This tip is one of those that when you get it, the game opens up absurdly. If trees give you easy wood, then turning wood into coal in the furnace becomes practically a resource faucet. The result is that you have coal as fuel and also as a base for items that heavily bottleneck progression, like roof tiles and glass. I always say the most common mistake is treating coal like it's a rare ore you need to go hunting for all the time, which holds your base hostage to the map. When you internalize that you can produce coal from wood, your farming route gets simpler. You cut trees, which are everywhere, throw them in the furnace, and that's it. Stock goes up without the drama. And the best part is the chain effect. Roof tiles usually become a priority because a roof isn't a luxury for a vampire, it's survival and expansion with fewer headaches. So, when I see I'm entering a building phase, I already leave the furnace working on this wood to coal loop, so I don't stall the construction due to a lack of fuel or components. I love that feeling of turning an annoying problem, depending on specific routes, into an automatic, controlled routine. It becomes that moment when you stop putting out fires regarding resources and start playing like a true lord planning production, keeping the furnace active and growing the castle without begging for coal. This tip is what separates the hardworking vampire from the strategic vampire. Wax from beehives seems simple, but collecting it by hand can become Russian roulette, depending on where you're sticking your nose and what shows up on the path. I, at least, have learned that some resources aren't worth the risk of close combat when you can turn them into a safe routine. The trick is to use the gathering station the right way. Instead of going back and forth like a delivery driver, you assign minions to do this passive collection for you. The feeling is wonderful because while you're exploring, fighting, or handling other business, the base is breathing on its own, and the wax is flowing into stock without you even noticing. And wax isn't just fluff. It becomes a bottleneck fast when you start wanting to make the castle look like a real castle, mainly because of chandeliers and upgrades. So I treat it as a maintenance resource like fuel, the kind you want constantly dripping in, not just when desperation hits and you realize you have zero. In my game, the rule is clear. If it's a material I'm going to spend slowly but constantly, I automate it as soon as possible. Wax is exactly that. Instead of taking risks and wasting time manually, I outsource it to the minions and use my gameplay energy for things only I can do: hunt, progress, and dominate the map. When you find mausoleums, they become automatic local respawns, so you stop being held hostage by the distance to the main castle. Instead of that eternal walk back, you respawn near the action and can try again with much less wasted time. What I do is treat mausoleums as route anchors. Found one in the north or west of Hell's Chasm, near the village and Luliu's camp. Done mentally, I mark that as an area where it pays to take more risks. From there, I explore the surroundings with a different posture, because I know any mistake doesn't become a punishment of a long trip, it just becomes a quick reset. And in difficult combat, this is gold, because you can learn the enemy's pattern in practice. Died? Come back fast, adjust your build, try another angle, change the timing. And this trial cycle becomes much cleaner when the game doesn't force you to spend minutes just to return to where you were. Just a mindset detail. Using local respawn isn't playing badly, it's playing smart. I consider this part of the Vampire's kit recognizing that the map is huge, time is valuable, and positioning, even of your respawn, is also strategy. Vampire's tiers seem like innocent upgrade currency until you realize you can blow them all on mediocre improvements and end up without the things that actually change the game. I treat tiers as an investment in mobility and information. First, I buy what lets me go further and see better, and only then do I think about decorations or small bonuses. Bat form, for me, is top priority because it becomes fast traversal and stealth at the same time. You shorten your path, avoid unnecessary trouble, and get to choose when it's worth fighting and when it's better to just fly past, which is exactly the kind of advantage that speeds up the mid-game without you noticing. And then comes Beast Vision. I'd put this as the second leg of this plan because seeing blood trails, hidden materials, and secrets changes how you explore. It's like the game stops being a walk in the dark and becomes a hunt you stop depending on luck and start reading the environment, finding resources you didn't even know were there. The main point is, don't spend tiers randomly on the starting trees just because the upgrade button is glowing. If you lock in bat form plus a good level of beast vision, the rest of your progress becomes cheaper in terms of time and risk, and then when you finally spend tiers on other things, it'll be by choice, not impulse. In advanced combat, I play by a simple rule. I don't trade blows on equal footing, I dismantle the enemy. Charged attacks aren't just for dealing damage, I use them specifically to break shields and stop that horrible feeling of hitting, and nothing happening. Another thing that became a habit for me, dash isn't movement, it's defense. When those strikes marked in red appear, I immediately think, okay, this is where I go through it, because the iframes of the dash let you pass through the danger instead of retreating in panic and taking a free hit on the way back. And if there's a target I respect and prioritize, it's the crossbowman. I always take down the ones shooting from afar first, because they mess up your rhythm, force you to waste dashes at the wrong time, and turn a controlled fight into chaos. When the group comes armored, that's when I don't hold back. Using an ultimate on a pack of enemies with armor, shields is my stop playing around button. Now, the cheekiest part, I use mausoleums as tactical life insurance. If I'm in a heavy area, I fight near the mausoleum, and if things go south, I accept death, because coming back fast and wearing down the enemy pack over several attempts reduces risk and saves travel time. It's almost like turning an impossible encounter into a sequence of short rounds until you clear everything with practically zero risk. I only convert a villager when they are isolated, because a witness is the kind of detail that explodes into a domino effect. You do a conversion in the middle of the street, someone sees it, and suddenly the whole village panics, it turns into a mess, and the very thing that was supposed to give you an advantage starts sabotaging your own routine. What I do is pick a target and have the patience of a shadow. I follow the guy as if I were stalking prey, waiting for him to move away from the square, the patrol, the group, or any crowd. It seems slower, but in reality it's the fastest way because it avoids that social alarm that turns an entire village into a nest of problems. And there's a very practical reason for this. When you spread panic, you mess with the mood and functioning of the place, and that can tank the efficiency of what you want from that area, production and taxes. I prefer a clean, silent conversion 1,000 times over, gaining a target but losing the rhythm of the entire map because of an involuntary show. So think of it like this. Conversion is a surgical operation, not a slaughter. Wait for the villager to be alone, avoid crowds, leave without a trace, because the goal isn't just to convert, it's to keep the village stable enough to keep feeding you resources as if nothing happened. This gossip tip with Florica is one of the most satisfying because it makes you feel like you're not just recruiting villagers blindly, you're doing intel work. You pay her gold in the village and suddenly your journal gains a layer of useful gossip in the rumors tab, which practically becomes a filter to spot hidden potential before investing time in someone. The trick is to read the phrases as if they were codes. When something like collects pretty stones appears, I already interpret it as someone with a profile geared towards enchanting, fine crafting. When it says hunted a bear alone, I automatically put that guy in the hunter or combatant box with strong stats. This changes everything because you stop looking only at appearance, location, and start building a team by function. And then the game becomes much more efficient management. Instead of converting just anyone and later finding out they're mediocre at what you need, you recruit only the ideal ones for each specific role. For me, this is the kind of optimization that saves invisible resources, time, risk, and frustration, because every conversion starts to have a clear purpose. The only thing I recommend is don't treat rumors as absolute truth. Treat them as a direction. I use these hints to decide who is worth the effort to recruit first, and then let their actual performance in my base confirm if I was right. Because when it works, it feels like you assembled a perfect cast just by reading bar talk. When you select the villager via the journal and mark the target, you stop hunting by eye and start playing with real tracking, as if you were following a mission, only the mission is a person. I like this because it solves an annoying problem. The target disappears, goes into a house, turns a corner, blends into the crowd, and you waste time like a fool. With tracking on the compass, you just keep your distance, let them walk, and guide your path without despairing, waiting for the right moment. And the right moment is almost always away from everyone else. That's where the smart part comes in. You use the compass not to get there faster and jump on them, but to follow along until they naturally fall into an isolated area, alleys, trails, corners off the square, and then you do the clean conversion. In my playstyle, this becomes a routine. Mark, follow with patience, avoid crowds, and convert with no witnesses. It seems simple, but it's exactly the kind of discipline that keeps the village running, avoids unnecessary panic, and makes you look like a calculating vampire, not a madman running after a villager in the middle of the street. When I started, I underestimated how much loyalty impacts the day-to-day until I saw a thrall becoming unstable and realized I was letting the system work against me out of pure carelessness. The first step I always take when I recruit someone is giving them real structure, a personal coffin. Dragging the coffin from the inventory to the thrall's slot seems like a detail, but to me, it's like declaring, you are part of the court, not a disposable resource. And curiously, that's what avoids headaches later. The second part is keeping the core full of blood as if it were your castle's bank account. If you let it drop, everything else starts to fall apart. When I keep the core stocked, I feel the base is more stable, the routine more predictable, and loyalty at the top, and that is what prevents desertion and keeps your production gin and running. In the end, I see it like this. A good thrall isn't just one with high stats, it's one that stays with you and performs well because the environment is right. Personal coffins plus a well-fed core becomes a combo of invisible management that you barely notice until the day you don't do it and the whole castle starts to creak.